Alrighty guys, hi, my name is Tyler. Welcome to the channel. Just wanted to introduce you to the two that I think are going to end up being the stars on this channel and tell you a little bit of what we're going to be doing. So this here is my 1964 Pontiac GTO. It is a true GTO that is verified by Pontiac Historical Society. It's a original 389 4-barrel car with a 3-speed manual transmission. The 3-speed is long gone. The original owner actually ripped, I think it was either first gear or second gear, but he ripped one of the gears out of the trans, drag racing it back in the day. That was something that my dad had told me. My dad was the second owner of this car, and he knew the first owner of the car, was actually close friends with him. So my dad knew quite a bit of the history of this car, and when it came up for grabs, he jumped on it. My dad was a huge fan of the 64 GTOs because it was the first year for the GTO, and it was really the car that really set off the muscle car era. I mean, yes, there were muscle cars before the GTO, but this is the car that really made muscle cars popular. So without this here, you wouldn't have your other muscle cars that you've got today. So basically what's going to be happening with this guy right now, it doesn't run, but my dad and I had still some rain left in the hood, but my dad and I had worked on this years ago, probably around 10 years ago, and gotten it running. But after the fact, my dad had somebody else pull the starter out to get it taken and rebuilt, and that basically didn't happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a starter for it, put a starter in it. I'm going to get a battery. Might actually just rob the battery out of that guy. And it's already been rigged up to run off of a gas can. So what I'll do one of these days is I'll take the distributor cap off there, clean up all the contacts inside, make sure that the rotor in there is nice and clean, file the points, make sure that they're nice and clean. Get on there. Then, like I said, put a starter in it, grab a battery, grab a can of gas with some premium in it, and we'll see if we can't get this old girl to roar to life again. Then, after that, one of these days, I'm obviously going to do a full restoration on that, and I'll make sure to document all that with you guys and show you what I've got to do, how I'm doing it. So unfortunately this car does need a frame, but I have another 64 GTO at my house. This is my parents' house here. But I've got another 64 at my house with no title. This one has a title. The one at my house does not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the body off of the other one, and any good body parts off that I'm going to use on this one. And then I'm going to take the frame, get it sandblasted, fix any potentially bad spots in it, but from what I can tell, it is a good frame. And so I'm going to get it sandblasted, get any bad spots in it fixed, get it painted. Then basically once that's ready to go, I'll get suspension in it, rear differential, all that stuff, rear axle, just get it ready for an engine and a car body. But yeah, that's the story on this old girl here. It's going to be a long project. It's going to be a lot of money, but it's definitely going to be worth it. There's obviously a lot of memories with this car. Like I said, my dad and I worked on it a few times. We got it running. One thing I did forget to mention is, unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, my dad passed away, so unfortunately, that is how I came to acquire this car. But either way, it's something to remember him by, especially once I get it done. And I just want to get it running again for now. So that I can see if the old man can hear it up there. But anyways, so this is my other car. This is a 1984 Pontiac Grand Prix. And in case the back tires were any kind of indicator, it's not exactly stock. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be expecting there to be a built, probably turboed LS motor under the hood. Where's my hood release? But that is not the case. Well, looky there. It's got a Pontiac in it. But it is a Pontiac, so this engine is a 400 cubic inch Pontiac out of a 1968 Pontiac GTO. And behind that is a turbo 400 transmission with a shift kit in it. And then in the back, we've got a Monte Carlo SS rear end with 373 gears and positive traction. So this car is basically set up for the track. It's still got some stuff that needs to be done to it. Previous owner that I purchased it from had relocated the battery to the trunk here. So by NHRA rules, in order to run it at the track, I have to have a battery shut off somewhere on the back of the car here that it's accessible from the outside. So one of these days I'm going to do that. That'll be something else I'll show you guys. And it runs pretty good, but I think it needs some more power, to be honest. It's basically a stock 68 GTO 400. About the only things that is not stock on this is the intake. It's got an Edelbrock Performer intake on it. It's got a Edelbrock Performer 750 carburetor on it. It's got electronic ignition. It's got roller rockers on it, and it's got basically the equivalent of a Ram Air 3 cam in it. It's a custom grind 240 duration, 480 lift from comp. So one of these days I'm going to be doing some work on it to see if I can't squeeze a little more power out of it. So what I'm planning on doing is a comp thumper cam in it, and I'm going to pull these factory Pontiac cast iron heads off of it, send them to either Butler Performance or Kaufman Racing Equipment, and have them work over the heads, get them to flow about 255 CFM maybe, and do a valve job on it, magnaflux them, make sure that they're good and whatnot. Then basically other than that, that's about all I have planned for it. Oh, and different pistons to lower the compression, because right now as this engine sits, it's got probably 10 3/4 to 1 compression. So yeah, regular pump gas doesn't work that well. What I usually end up running in this thing is 92 octane pump gas, but then I add a bottle of 103 octane booster. So, but one of these days, probably this summer, I'm gonna be working on the body, fixing stuff like this, fixing stuff like this, and repainting it. So that's the story on this car, pretty much. This one does run. I actually just got back from taking it for a little cruise. We'll see if it'll fire up fairly easy. Oh, come on, baby. There she goes. So like I said, it runs pretty good. Sounds mean as hell. It's got a pipes violator exhaust system on it, so it's pretty loud. Every now and then I get complaints, that car's too loud. But nah, I think it sounds good. So out back here we've got 255 6015 Mickey Thompson BP Street radials. So it's got a first quarter stick shifter in it. But yeah, like I said, it's a runner. It runs pretty darn good. Maybe one of these days when I get an actual camera, I'm actually videotaping this on my phone right now. Let me shut that off. But anyways, maybe one of these days when I get an actual camera and some way to set it up in the car, I'll take you guys for a little bit of a ride, show you what she can do. So this car has actually got a fairly interesting story to it. Before I acquired it, the original owner was a little old lady up in Alpena, Michigan. And she owned the car from brand new up until, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, something like that. And the car's only got, the body has only got about 80,000 miles, or 79,000 miles on it. So, and this car was originally a 3.8 liter V6 with a 3-speed automatic trans. I think it had like 342 gears with an open diff. But one day, the old 3.8 started knocking, and the little lady decided that she was going to sell it. So this guy purchased it. Not the guy that did all this, and he purchased it, and he brought it down to Norwalk, Ohio for Pontiac Tri-Power Nationals down there one year. And a good buddy of his, who's got a couple GTOs, saw it and was like, man, that's a really clean car. Which, for what it is a very clean car. Because, believe it or not, all this, the paint, the body, all of it, it's all original. Hasn't had anything done to it. Hasn't been repainted. Hasn't had any body work done to it. So, but anyways, getting a little sidetracked there. So, this guy's buddy that bought it was like, well, what are we going to do with this thing? That old V6 is worn out, it's knocking. What are we going to do with it? Well, he had this Pontiac 400 out of his 68 GTO, because he was building a, I can't remember, either a Butler or a Kaufman stroker motor for it. They're like, you know what? We're going to go through that engine, we're going to rebuild it, make sure it's good, put new rings, bearings, all that stuff in it. We'll put a different cam in it. We'll go ahead and put it in this car. So that's how this car, basically as it sits, came to be. I've done a couple things to it, not a lot. I had to put a different fuel pump on it because the one day I went to start it and it just cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked and cranked. Couldn't get it to fire. Stopped cranking it. Hit the key again, crank and crank and crank and crank, and then it coughed. It's like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. Cranked it again, cough, cough, gave it some gas, fired off. Went and drove it to our local car show, cruise night, super cruise night in Waseon, Ohio. And drove up there, had a good time at the show, left, went to my mother-in-law's house for a little bit. We were there for about, an hour and a half or so. Went out, crank and crank and crank. So I was like, okay, I'm losing fuel somewhere, because I looked at the fuel pump, or fuel filter there, and it was empty. So I was like, where's my fuel going? And I was like, well, there's about only one thing it could be, and that's the fuel pump. Because those old mechanical pumps, they've got a check valve in them that prevents the fuel from running back to the tank. And the check valve went bad. So I put a new fuel pump on it, and that stopped that issue. But then, another day, I went to start it to drive it to work. Did nothing but crank, and I actually ran the battery dead trying to get it to start. Ended up not being able to take it to work. So then, I got to work, called the wife up, because she was still home. She wasn't working at the time. And I told her, hey, do me a favor, run out, put the battery charger on the car so that the battery is charged up. And I'm going to come back on my lunch break. We're going to see if we can't get it running. And basically what I ended up having to do was take the air cleaner off here and to put my hand over top of the carburetor to choke it. And what was going on with that is when I first bought the car, it had a Quadrajet carb on it. I don't know what size or anything, but it was originally a Chevy carb, and none of the choke components were there. Why I didn't have a problem before, I don't know. But one day, all of a sudden, I couldn't get it to start. Realized it's got nothing hooked up for choke. And so I got that Edelbrock that's on there now from my cousin. He used to run that carburetor on his 91 Firebird that had a 400 in it. And he was like, hey, I might have to rebuild it. It's been sitting on the shelf for a number of years, so I got a $40-some rebuild kit for it. Took it apart, cleaned it all up. Put it all back together. Excuse me. Smoke another. But anyways, got the carburetor rebuilt, put it on there. Got in it. Turned it over a few times just to get fuel up to the carb. Hit the gas once just to set the choke, and she fired right off. So that made me really happy, but then I was having issues with it running rich. So the next thing I did, I got this Holley fuel pressure regulator and that Mr. Gasket fuel pressure gauge, because with these Edelbrock carburetors, it is essential that you have your fuel pressure set to about 4.5 to 5.5 psi, because otherwise it overfills the floats and they run rich. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun project, and there's lots more to come. Stay tuned. It's going to be fun.